My name's Luke. I'm the local campaigns organizer at Compass. So I work with our network of local groups around the country, helping them achieve their local aims. Um, and we're joined here by Councillor Paul Harvey. So if you'd like to introduce yourself, tell us where you are and a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I'm Dr. Paul Harvey, and I am a councillor in Basingstoke and Deane Borough, and I'm leader of the Independent Forum on Basingstoke Council. I've been a councillor for just approaching 22 years, and yes, indeed, and yes, a lot of experience on lots of different aspects of the council, as you can imagine, over that period.
Yeah, that's a lengthy stint that you've done.
Absolutely,
I think that's one of the longer periods I've heard of. But you might know of people who've done even longer, I'm sure.
indeed, there's a few.
Yeah. So tell us about the history of the coalition or partnership in Basingstoke and Deane. When did it start, and what are some of the key achievements that you've reached together?
Okay, so last year was the first year in 17 years that the Conservative group did not have a majority on the council. And as a result of that, the three opposition groups, the Independent Forum, the Labour group, and the Liberal Democrat group, discussed how we might go about working together. And as a result of that, the Independent Forum and the Liberal Democrats have formed an executive that was supported by the Labour group. And that enabled those groups to take control of the authority and run the authority for the first time last year, for the last 17 years. Which is a massive change, huge change to the district, massive change to our borough. And we've really been working hard to find our feet, to roll out a policy programme, to take the council and the borough in the direction that we wanted to go in, which was very much about renewal, about trust in politics, and about delivery, actual outcomes on the issues that were very relevant to our residents. As a coalition, we represent so significantly the rural and urban parts of the borough. We are both an urban borough in Basingstoke, but we represent 264 square miles of North Hampshire. So we're a very large district. And so it's important that we represent all the towns and villages as well as the town of Basingstoke. And that's a key part of our administration. And this last year, the coalition has been able to look to things such as social media, pushing out things on social housing, socially rented housing, on an agenda around regeneration, agenda around renewal of our politics in reaching out to our parishes and town councils to engage them in a way that they haven't been for many, many years. The local plan has been a big part of the last year of the coalition. And so all of that has been finding a grounding of policy, the green agenda, climate change, the whole agenda around the ecological emergency has been very important to us. That working through of issues around our housing associations and the delivery of frontline services. So a lot of work to do with grounds and street care, those services that people see day in, day out. And as a district, we're in a very good position. We have a balanced budget, so we're able to invest. And that's exactly what we've done. We've invested over that period in those services. And so people are seeing quite a change now as the investments resulting in change on the ground.
That's really great to hear, especially the fact that you have kind of a budget to work with, because I know that's one of the things that we see with a lot of councils at the moment, increasing financial pressures. So it's nice to hear of a council that's on the other side of that and has a bit more freedom to, invest and regenerate those services like you mentioned.
Very true. I think there are so many other authorities, and we're very conscious of that in terms of our fellow authorities in the local government family who are struggling. And I mean, a great example of that is Hampshire County Council. They've just put through £132 million of cuts this year, and that's having a dramatic impact on the services that they're delivering. Adult and social care are really on an edge. You feel that. And government have got to answer the question, what are you going to do for local government? Because we cannot afford for councils to fall over. We can't afford for more councils to go bankrupt. And there is a genuine agenda needed to look after the interests of local government being the delivery on the ground. We're the face of government. We're the ones that people see day in, day out delivering services. The preventative agenda is huge on housing, on health, on social, on all of those areas. We are the preventative agenda that makes such a difference to people's lives. And government need to realise that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess after 17 kind of years under Conservative administration, was it difficult for you and other progressive parties to start working together, or was that a big cultural change, or were you used to kind of collaborating uh, in the past anyway?
I think there was a certain amount of us being used to working together. And I think there was also a sense that we wanted to do something different. We each had an agenda which overlapped, for example, on the social housing agenda, on the regeneration of our town, on investment in leisure services, on investment in frontline services. There was a coalescence of agreement around these are the really important things we want to get on with. And it was the opportunity to do something. I said in a speech last year that it was the opportunity to serve the community. And so the Independent Forum, the Labour Group, and the Liberal Democrat Group, and to be fair, other councillors too. I mean, there are Conservative councillors working as well with us. It's not just it was a sense of whole council coming together to try to do something differently. And that's very much the agenda. Can we do politics differently? Can we take it away from the party political merry-go-round and turn it into something that is more real for people, so they see what their council can do for them on the ground, as I say. But more than that, we solve the issues the town and the borough have got. We actually find the outcomes that people want, which is solutions to their problems.
Mhm. That sounds great. Um, can you highlight an example of how working with other parties has helped you to achieve a better outcome in a particular case or with a particular policy? And one way that might be helpful to look at this is what have you achieved in partnership that you might not have been able to achieve otherwise?
I think it's the consensus. It's that notion that one particular group is not the only show in town. We all have to work together to achieve the end. And as I say, there are really important things that we all want to do. So to get there, you have to talk, you have to engage, you have to be part of a conversation. And that conversation naturally leads you, hopefully, and it has done for us, to solutions that we can drive forward. And I think that's grounded in a way that gives you stability. It offers you foundations on which you can build things that are going to last. So the big ticket items like regeneration, which is a massive multi-year program of work that needs to be done, is something you build because everyone's buying into it and the community are buying into it too. So it's not just what goes on inside the council chamber that's important, it's what goes on outside in the communities that you're taking those messages to. So they feel bought into what you're trying to achieve and they feel as if the council's actually doing something for them. And again, you renew democracy, you rebuild trust. And that's a key part of where we've seen politics suffer recently, is the impact that national politics has had on people's trust in politics. And local government is still the most trusted sector of government. And that's a really powerful thing. And we need to use that for good.
Yeah, that's a really kind of stark contrast that you highlight there. Um, we're seeing so much kind of change amongst local government and a real willingness for parties and people kind of outside what we might call the three main parties to work together. But that just isn't replicated nationally in most cases, which is a shame. But local government's a great kind of space to show the merits of that.
I think so.
So it's great to hear the work you've been
ability
doing.
to put aside the tribal politics. It's that ability to say, actually, I'm here for the people I represent.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes first. I mean, our Independent Forum, it has many disparate views within it, but we come together, we have an adult conversation about the issues, we reach a consensus and we move forward together because we've had that conversation. We don't whip. There's no whipping. There's no forced voting. Everybody has a voice. Everybody has the opportunity to make themselves heard. And in that, you come to an adult, mature political conversation that results in an outcome. So how are we going to solve this problem? And then you bring everybody together. And our colleagues in other groups are doing the same.
That's brilliant. What would you say to voters in the upcoming local elections in your area? Would you encourage them to vote tactically, or what specific advice would you give to them?
I mean, politically at the moment, obviously we are in the election period, and as leader of the Independent Forum, I would encourage people to think about who's actually standing in their ward, the area you're going to be voting in, who are the challengers to the Conservatives, in those wards, and how do you best go about achieving what we would all want, which is progressive politics, to move politics forward. So I think tactical voting is incredibly important, and you will find Liberal Democrats, Labour and Independents, all of whom have the opportunity to win seats from the Conservatives, and tactical voting will make a big difference.
Yeah. What are the risks, would you say, if the Tories were to regain control of the administration?
I hope we've put enough in place that we can keep some of the direction of travel going. I also hope that the national political scene and the way people are feeling means the Conservatives won't be back in control. But you take nothing for granted. You get out there, you talk to people, you do the campaigning. We're out there in the pre-election period now. So as leader of the Independent Forum, my focus is on getting as many people to vote in the first place. Please go out and vote. These are local elections. They are really important. They will determine the services that you receive most. And also they will shape some of the national political message as well. The result of these local elections will be very important to tell the national politicians just how much you feel about what's been going on and how strongly you feel, and use this as an opportunity to express yourself.
Then there's one point you mentioned there, which I think it feels especially important this time around, which is just the kind of fact of getting people to engage in the election and encouraging people to vote. And
yeah,
even though it has been kind of increasingly talked about, the new voter ID restrictions and changes to electoral law feel like restrictions in some senses and obstacles that some people might not yet know about. So it feels especially important kind of from our perspective as a campaigning organisation, and I'm sure from your position as somebody seeking election, to encourage people to go out and engage in the process.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, that the voter ID laws, some people may say, are logical, because why would you not take your ID to prove who you are? But there wasn't a problem in the first place. We've never had a problem with the British electoral system. We haven't had that issue. And so it's in many ways, it is exactly what it says on the tin. It is about suppressing the vote, and it's about stopping people who have every right to exercise their franchise from doing so, for the very simple fact they may not have the particular kind of ID that the government thinks that you should have. So there is a logic to the argument. I get that side of the debate, but there's also a seriousness which says there was never a problem needing to be fixed in the first place. It's a bit like postal votes. There's never been an issue with postal votes, so why suddenly decide to make it even more complicated? So I think the voter ID thing and preventing people from voting, putting obstacles in the way of people voting, is an issue. I think generally people feel that they just are tired of politics. That it's just been so much of a roller coaster over recent years. And if you go from Boris Johnson to Liz Truss to Richie Sunak, what's the answer? You've got this utter storm of chaos going on, and people feel as if their lives have been put through it, let alone COVID, let alone economic crises, let alone issues around housing or health or education. People feel it at the moment, that they're not getting a government delivering what they feel are the basics of a civic society.
Yeah.
Massive underinvestment in public services, yet it's the highest taxation we've ever seen. And there's loads of issues around how government works, democracy works.
Yeah.
So the very simplest thing that we can do, I think, as councillors and as candidates standing, is to show that democracy works. Get out there, campaign, show that you're engaged as candidates, to encourage people to come out and vote. And don't be afraid to door knock. Don't be afraid to get out there and show yourself to people and ask them to support you, because that's the point. They need to connect, and you build a relationship around the fact that you are their representative. So be their representative.
Mm-hmm.
Show them that it matters to you and that it matters them that they should go out and vote.
Yeah, absolutely. And that leads on to my next question, really, about the kind of cultural problems with national politics and how to combat them locally. So how might progressive parties in your area build on the collaboration that you've already seen locally on the council, and make use of that at a general election? What outcomes might you want to see in your area?
For me, it's localism. The number one message I can push is localism. You achieve more by being in touch and decisions made at a local level. And national government needs to get with the programme. They need to get to understand that central government versus local government is actually defeating for central government. We can solve so many of central government's problems if we were given the tools to do the job, if we had the confidence of central government to have more power localised in our communities to do the very things we need to do. It is disgusting that I have to deal with food banks on a Friday morning because my residents cannot afford to meet ends meet because national government are not delivering the jobs, the quality of life that we need to see. It's terrible that our community centres are at stretched breaking point in so many different ways. CAB services and so on, mental health services, support for residents, the most vulnerable in our community are at breaking point because the government just can't get it because they're too focused on their own crises, on actually silly party politics going on. And what we really need are localised solutions and the empowerment of communities to solve their own problems. You empower a community by giving them, yes, money, and money's a big part of it, but give them power too. Mm-hmm. And if you do that, we will see the very best. And don't be afraid of variation. Things will be different in the south of the country as it is to the north of the country, the west and the east. But celebrate innovation and celebrate variation, because that's what a local agenda means to a local community to help resolve many of those issues. And on a national level, health and education, localised, head teachers being allowed to be head teachers, nurses and doctors being allowed to be nurses and doctors, and resolving some of the red tape and the bureaucracy issues around allowing professionals in our public services to be professionals is really important. That's a very important. And in terms of that local government, we have a whole range of professional officers who do an amazing job and deserve the respect of being public servants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So we at Compass, we talk a lot about the structural or procedural changes that might be conducive to some of those different focuses that you've mentioned. So localism and empowering local people to take decisions near them. Yeah. So we talk a lot, for example, about PR at Compass as the biggest change to the voting system, yes. The House of Commons that we'd like to see, but there are also so many other innovations, and one of them is one that you've already mentioned, not whipping councillors, for example. I wonder if you want to say a little bit more about that and how that's kind of had a cultural change in your council.
I think it's interesting because there are now a larger group of independent forum members on the council. We have the ability to try to change the culture. And to be fair, it's not just us. Our Liberal Democrat and Labour colleagues and many of our Conservative backbench colleagues share that same desire to be councillors first, because that's the job. That's what you are there to be. And I think just unlocking that party control to say, actually, it's all right to think, it's all right to be, and then we can work together because actually we have, and we've delivered things together, and suddenly we're doing what the residents want us to do, and it's healthy politics.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with a good debate. Nothing wrong with a good debate. But where it goes wrong is when it gets into the tribalism, where it becomes personal and it becomes vicious. And that's where it goes wrong. And I see too much of that. I still see too much of it, particularly on social media, and particularly, unfortunately, from a number of Conservatives who can't help themselves on social media to be very aggressive and very negative. And that's troubling. And I call it out for what it is. Debate needs to be had, not hate. Debate, not hate is really important. And I think you're right. That culture change of not whipping, of doing politics differently, can, again, breed confidence, can give confidence to local communities that their local authorities are in touch with them. PR is so important. PR at a local level and PR at a national level. I think nationally PR is very important, but I also believe locally it's important. And devolution, this notion that devolution could be a one-size-fits-all. If you could think of having a county council, whatever that county council might be, suddenly being the only authority for an area, it's so remote from people. Devolution has to be about handing power down to the local unit that can work best. Mm-hmm. And that in many ways is district authorities.
Yeah.
We are at the coalface. And we're actually the ones that do most. We're the ones that deliver the housing. We're the ones that do the local plans. We're the ones that sort out and work with our education colleagues. And we work with our health partners. And we deliver all of those amazing agendas that can make a difference to people's lives. That localism, and I really do mean that as an agenda, is so powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The last question that we've been asking as part of this series is kind of less relevant in your case because it's a lot of the people we've interviewed have been kind of local politicians of the three main progressive parties. So we've been asking kind of how they feel that attitudes locally have differed from the central party headquarters. But there's kind of still a variation of this question that I think is interesting to talk about with you. So how would you say that being part of an independent group has from the start enabled you to be in politics differently to those who are part of the party from the start?
I mean, in a strange way, you're still part of a collective because we are independent councillors working together because we choose to. We choose to come together in an independent forum, and we work with our Green colleagues as well. And that's another important aspect of that. Both the independent group of councillors and the Green councillors work together in the local government association. And actually, by being together, we're the third largest group on the LGA. So actually, as a force in the country, independent councillors are a very significant force. And we're growing. We are growing across the country, from residents' associations to independent groups to independent councillors to different kinds of localised political parties to the Green colleagues in the Green Party who are growing dramatically across the country with councillors in so many different parts of the country now. There is a real sense that just by working together, you actually achieve far more.
Right.
It is, Joe Cox was right. We are far more in common than we ever have that divides us. And by really emphasising that which we have in common, we can work together and achieve more. Progressives need to come together. Those on the other side of the political spectrum come together, and they do it very effectively. We progressives need to understand that we can work together and we can achieve an awful lot where we do work together. And party politics isn't everything. It really isn't. Let's work together. The only thing that matters is making a difference to somebody's life.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that matters. That's what politics is for.
Well, I think we can all cheers to that. I think that's a really important point. It's not just about kind of working together for the sake of winning, but working together for the sake of the difference that enables you to do. So
if you get power, what are you going to do with it? No point just having it. Getting power is one thing. What are you actually going to do with it to make a difference? That's the question.
Yeah, and it's great seeing how many answers from local government and local politicians there are to that question, because it feels increasingly like on the national stage there is a real kind of freezing of ideas, and it's brilliant to see all the work that local councils like yourself do.
I was able to go to the District Councils Network conference last week, and there is so much talent across all political parties and none as independents. There is so much talent in local government.
Yeah, absolutely.